welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth, and today I am here with Nadia Busseuil and Nicole Carter. They are ex-Wall Street executives, twins who became financially independent in their 30s. They are millionaires and they're the co-founders of Wealth Twins. Today, they teach us how to invest and manage money so that we can live the life we want without having to work forever. Nadia and Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Anne-Lyse.
Hello, Anne-Lyse. Thank you. We appreciate you inviting us on your show.
Absolutely. I first came across your profile, I think last year on the Marriage, Kids, and Money show, and I'm just glad to finally have you guys on as guests. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, or at least your experience when it comes to money and wealth early on.
We grew up in a single-family household in New York City housing projects. And what we saw was a lot of people struggling with money. You have a lot of good people who struggle with money. And I think that's the problem when it comes to New York housing. I think a lot of people think it's just a lot of crime, a lot of bad people. People are not working, they're lazy. And I think that's sort of a stereotype. That's definitely not true. You have a lot of hardworking people who live there. It's just a high cost of living city. And they want to do well for themselves, but they have some financial difficulties. And we were one of those families that had financial difficulties. So we grew up in a good family, but a lot of times the finances are something that will impact your lifestyle. And that's something we learned very early on.
I mean, for us too, like just piggybacking on what Nadia was saying, our mother worked 7 days a week, but I ended up making more than my mother by the time I was maybe 19 years old, just based on the jobs I was getting based on our education. So when it came to money, we realized that you had to do more than just work hard for it, because you had to focus on making more money. So our mother told us to focus on education because she knew that education was a way to get a higher paying job and hopefully get us out the neighborhood we were in. And she instilled a good work ethic in us too, because we saw her working so hard. But with her working so hard, she actually passed away fairly early, in our opinion. I believe not having money led to a lot of stress in her life, and she actually ended up passing away from a heart attack by the time we were 20. So she never got to see us graduate from school or to see what we were doing now. So I think that was another reason why we focused on using money as a way to help change our lifestyle so that it wouldn't be stressed out because of the lack of money.
Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear about your mother. I know it's been quite some time now, but when it comes to like losing a parent, time just doesn't make it go away. In doing my research, I read something interesting about what your mother used to do when you guys were in school, giving you $3 every day. Yes. I would love for you guys to talk more about that and what you learned from that.
My mother had a saying, like, you never walk around without just at least $1 in your pocket, because you got to find a way to get home. It takes a lot more to get home right now, but I always kept that in my head. So she would give us $3 a day. One we would spend, one we would make sure we keep, and then the other one we start saving. And we primarily started saving because we wanted to be able to get her something for her birthday or for Mother's Day or for Christmas. So we had like I don't know if you know those water gallon, like those big water tank bottles. So my brother had bought us an empty one. And we would stick $1 a day, each of us, into that water bottle. And I still have that water bottle. And that's how we started our journey on savings. Because we're like, okay, hey, this is growing pretty fast, especially when you have two people put $1 in. And it's just something so small can start building up and really make a difference. And at one point, our savings, we had more than people who were working every single day. So they were like, hey, Nadia and Nicole, let me borrow a couple of dollars. Like, well, you're working. That doesn't make sense to me. We were saving $3 a day. And it just made an impression on us. Like, this little bit can make a bigger difference. So what if you have more money? If you save more, how much of a difference can that make in your life?
So you guys grew up in a poor part of New York City, and then you learned work ethic and hard work from your mother, and you landed a job on Wall Street. I'm curious to hear, though, how did your mindset about money change after you started working on Wall Street?
So we started working at Goldman Sachs, and really, we didn't have any true money management education at home because our mother basically lived check to check, and whatever money she saved, she actually saved it in a shoebox or under the mattress back in those days. And I remember the first lady I worked with was an older Black lady named Pearl, And Pearl told me, this was the age of, I might have been just turning 21 or so.
21.
She said, Nicole, when you make $1, save 10 cents. And I said, okay, that sounds easy enough. No problem, right? And then a couple months later, a manager of mine said, Nicole, do you have a retirement account, your 401k? And I was like, no, is this going to take money out of my account? And he said, well, you know what? Let me take you aside. And he did an Excel spreadsheet and he showed me the power of compound interest. And when he said, look, you just put this little bit of money away and it can grow like this. At back that time, I think he was showing me at a rate of 9%. So very hard to get that on a lot of things now. But when I saw that number, how that little bit can change into such a large number, I immediately called Nadia and said, we got to get into this 401k. So having people around you who were used to managing money for themselves and maybe had a different background than you growing up, being exposed to those type of people early on really had a positive impact in my life.
It's interesting how one piece of information can literally change your life or the course of your life. So you guys, when you worked on Wall Street, you've seen several economic downturns. So
Yes.
Can you talk more about that and how it impacted you guys?
When we first came in was at the height of like just when the dot-com bubble had bust. So we saw like how it looked a couple of months before and then how it drastically changed, right? Then we went through 9/11. And then when we were still working on Wall Street, I was working at a different firm. We went through the recession of 2007, 2008. The one that made the biggest impact on me was when that dot-com bubble popped just before 9/11. And it was because people were living well and you see a lot of the amenities that the company had provided. But then when you notice things start changing and they do rounds of layoffs, multiple rounds of layoffs, you saw how people were impacted by losing that job and they had no planning. They would walk in, call you into an office, you'll get walked to your desk, security would ask you to grab your stuff and you'll leave. Nobody would see you after that. And that was a big impression on me. I was like, how does this person plan for the next day? Like you were in the office thinking nothing was going to happen. And then all of a sudden things changed in an instant. And I told myself, I can't depend on a job. One, I won't keep much stuff at my desk because you're not going to get me to carry a heavy box out because I'm not going to embarrass myself on the way out. And two, I'm going to make sure that if someone does have to make that decision for me, that decision won't impact my life to the point that I have to run and get another job. I have to take more control over my independence than let that be left up to will of someone else.
There's a lot of uncertainty right now with the economy and what 2023 is going to look like. Actually, what next month is going to look like, really. Can you share maybe some of the lessons or some of the things that you did after witnessing those different downturns that people can apply today so that they can be in a better situation?
I mean, I would say don't wait until it rains because when it rains, it pours. And I know how people like to say, oh, it's okay for you. If you made a lot of money, you can be all right. But the difference is you have people who can make the same amount of money, but have totally two different financial lives. Making money does not mean that you're good with money. And you can be living paycheck to paycheck because I think the rate now is probably like over 70% of people, or at least 60% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So that means it spans different income levels. So I'm not a fan of saying it's your paycheck that determines you living a better life. The difference between a person that has the savings and is prepared for a recession is that they understand a rainy day is coming, okay? So they understand that life happens and they put money away as a habit before anything happens. You can't know when your tire is going to blow out, but I guarantee you one day your tire is going to blow out. So you either start planning for that early or you wait until it happens. And if you wait until it happens, you're going to be in a much worse position. So just when it's easier, just keep putting money away. It doesn't matter if it's little or not. Any little bit is going to help. So I would say don't wait for a recession. Don't wait for them to come knocking at your door. Just do it every so often whenever you can. Make it a priority.
I will say another thing is that just on a personal level, I kept my expenses low. I saw people struggling to pay for private school. How am I going to pay for private school if I get let go? I said, I'm not going to have that fare. I'm going to keep my expenses low. So if anybody's going to be affected, it will just be me. But I know how, if I'm making this amount of money, I know how to live at a lower level. So let's make this happen. I'll put more money away, but I'm not going to increase my expenses at the same time because I want to be extra sure I'll be able to sustain until I can find another job or until I can find something else I want to do. So that was just a personal level. I made that switch in my head. Keep everything low as possible.
So you became financially independent in your 30s. How do you define financial independence?
Not having to work for someone else to cover my expenses. That's my definition. So I was able to leave high pressure, long hours job and make more money outside of that job than when I was in that job. So that to me was financial independence, because at that point, I'm not depending on someone else's paycheck to help me survive.
So like Nadia said, I was also keeping my expenses very low. And I was also saving at the same time, investing at the same time, doing other things on the side, like real estate that we both did. But we didn't just buy real estate where we lived in. We bought real estate where someone can live in the same place as us to help pay for that property. So all those things in the combination allow for some income to come in. And as we kept our expenses low, that's where you get financial independence.
How many years did it take you to reach financial independence?
It probably took me, like when I really started putting my mind to it and saving, like at one point I was saving 75% of my check. And then I was putting that in towards investments. I'd say for me to be comfortable with it, 10 years.
Okay.
That's an honest answer. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, that's a great reminder, right? But also, as people are watching the show or listening, they're thinking, all right, they worked at Goldman Sachs, so they could afford to save 75% of their income and still live well. What would you say about that?
I mean, Goldman did pay like that depending on where you were, but we were working in Manhattan. We were both living in Queens. I think my rent was very low, and I would bring food to work. On top of that, I didn't get my first new car until maybe 8 years ago. I remember buying a car. My first car was what, $1,200?
Yeah, and we bought it at an auction.
We shared a car, and my car was less than $5,000. And then on top of that, here we go with the Goldman Sachs story. Now, Nadia mentioned 3 different downturns, one being September 11th and the dot-com. Now, when they started doing the layoffs, that same Pearl, that lady Pearl who told me, Nicole, save 10 cents after every dollar, she was asking to be laid off at the same time they were laying off people. And I looked at her versus a person who was laid off and came back in the next day because he could not handle being laid off. And I guess he just didn't know how to tell his family this had happened. It was such a
devastation.
It was devastating for him. And they both had worked for the same amount of years, probably 30 years. And the difference between what Pearl was doing and the actions that this other person was doing was a big turning point for me too. When I said, look at this, this person said something so simple. And she was like, that was the one. I said, I need to follow her. She just said, save 10 cents for every dollar. And she was like, let me out. I want to get out of here. But the other person was like, what am I going to do? So that's 2 people working the same job because they were literally desks away from each other. And they were having 2 different experiences when it came to recession. So I wouldn't let anybody say it's just because of the amount of money you make. It's how you manage your money, no matter where you are.
I love that. So tell me about life after financial independence. How has it impacted your lifestyle?
I have a lot of freedom now. I choose what to do with my day. And that choice is you have to make the choice to be productive and you have to make the choice to try to make an impact because we're very ambitious people. But when you don't have someone setting a schedule on you, you're going to an office every single day. It's kind of hard to maintain that motivation to do stuff for yourself and keep shooting for goals. So that's something that's different. Like you have a lot of free time on your hands and you have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your life. It's your chance to make that happen. So that's a way that financial independence has changed for me. Also, I get to spend a lot of time with my kids. That was one of the main reasons I decided that I needed to shoot for this goal because my mother was working 7 days a week. And I wanted to be one of those parents who could show up at school, read a book to the kids, bring something for a birthday party or volunteer and go on a field trip. I never had that experience. And I wanted that for my children.
I mean, for me, financial independence, it sounds like it's an end goal, but I think it's a continuous process.
Yes.
We don't rest on, we did this, it's done, that's it. No, I'm still trying to grow my money. I'm still trying to find ways to keep independence because with financial independence, and I want people to know this, a downturn could take out a lot of people who are financially independent, depending on how they're making their money. And this is why we diversify our wealth. You have to be smart with it, and you have to go with the changing environment too. It's not a set it and forget it type of thing, at least not for me. Two, I believe what it also has done is allow me to focus on other aspects that are important, just as important as building wealth is our health. And I think Nadia and I, we're in our 40s now, and we're more concerned with how we're going to have a higher quality of life. Because like we said, our mother passed away from a heart attack because of stresses of money. Well, then we need to figure out a way to live a better life and use the money we have to make our life better in terms of physically. So we're all about healthy eating now. We're all about stretching and walking now. And I think those things you can bring to the forefront because you have more time to think about other things that impact your life.
Yeah, I was speaking to a friend about this, and I'm like, is it a privilege that we get to do this? And it's more like you get to focus on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm not in that survival mode anymore. I don't have to keep worrying about, oh, there's a whole other world out here of other things I can do to start improving my life or focus on because this area is covered. You know,
Nadia is learning French.
Yeah, exactly. You get to explore different areas of your life that you may not necessarily be able to if you're just focused on working all the time and focusing on surviving and focusing on making money. So I think it kind of is a privilege that's afforded to you if you do manage your money correctly or manage it in a way that it suits your lifestyle.
Yeah, I still budget
like
every
that.
day. I still budget.
So I'm sure your budget today or your process might be slightly different than when you were on your journey to financial independence, though, right?
I mean, I have more people in the family. I have to budget for kids. I have to budget for
Activities.
activities. It gets kind of expensive, but yeah, it's still the same premise is all spend less than what you earn. That's it. But budgeting is still a very big part of my life and finding deals. I don't go out and buy something just because I can. I'm still finding deals. I still wait till Labor Day. I know people might think, oh, I can't believe you're doing it. No, this is part of the game too.
Yeah, I was laughing the other day. I looked at my cars. I'm like, one's 20 years old, one's 10 years old. I was going to get a new car, but I'm like, I'm not paying this over the sticker price. I'm not doing it. So I'll rock these cars. My 20-year-old one is my newest one. I just bought that. Like, I spend what is important to me. Cars are not important to me. I have small kids. They're going to tear my car up. I'd rather put that money somewhere else.
You have me beat. My car is 11 years old, so you win. But I'm glad you guys mentioned that because a lot of times, at least the image, right, that is out there of the millionaire is the person that goes out and buys whatever they want and do whatever they feel like it, spend whenever, wherever. And I think a very important part of being able to preserve the wealth is you also have to kind of like think about the expenses that you're going to make. If you want to build generational wealth, if you want to pass down assets, you have to be mindful of your spending. But earlier, Nicole, you said that you are real estate investors and you talked about diversifying your wealth. Can you share what you guys are doing separately or together to diversify your wealth?
I would say it's basically broken up into three different things. One is real estate, which we don't have too much in real estate.
We don't have like hundreds of houses. I don't want that headache.
We have one apiece. I actually have maybe another one in another country, and then we're looking at one together right now that we're thinking about. But we're also waiting for a time in the market where we might increase that portfolio. In terms of investing, we have index funds, we have ETFs, and we have some single stocks. And they're all in different industries. And one of the things, and your listeners might like to understand too, is that we're getting into bonds in terms of just one particular bond right now is an I bond. It's a savings bond. People might think, oh, that's not sexy, things like that. The Series I bond, savings bond, is paying 9.6%. And that's a safe investment. I'm putting that you get up to $10,000 per person with that bond. Of course, I'm taking advantage of that. So that's another way we're diversifying that.
Just add in, we're focusing on increasing passive income also.
Yeah, we like to do dividend investing.
So talk to me about dividend investing. What is it, first of all?
Well, here's my catchphrase I say all the time so people can understand. Dividends are the only way to make passive income in the stock market, okay? So there's two ways to make money on a stock. The price goes up or You can get the price go up and make dividends, or you just get dividends. So there's actually 3 ways. But most people just focus on buying a low stock and hoping that it goes up. That's one strategy. And if you get good with it, good for you. And sometimes, like if you were doing a pandemic or even around now, you'll find some deals where you might get a good stock at a lower price that you can hope to get up. But the only way to make money on a stock is to sell it to someone else. When it comes to dividends, you can just hold it and you get paid money just for holding the stock. So it's a little bit of money that you get, but holding on to that money and reinvesting the money that you get from that stock into more of that stock, it makes a huge difference. That's that compounding.
So how do we go about even figuring out which companies to invest in to get dividends from them?
If you find a dividend paying company, you just go to Yahoo Finance or go to Google Finance, and you see if this company that you're looking at actually pays a dividend. It's very simple to see because you'll see the dividend payment, you see a dividend yield. If there's nothing there, that's not a dividend paying company.
So like a quick example would be Apple versus Tesla. Everyone knows those 2 companies. Everyone says, oh, Tesla's great, Apple's great, but Apple pays a dividend. Tesla does not, you see? So they both can go up and they're both doing great technology, but one is going to pay you just for holding it.
But for someone who's new to even investing, how do they not invest in the wrong company? What are some of the steps they can take to make investment and not
I'll give you
gamble?
step number 1. Don't listen to someone telling you go buy this and just go out and buy it. The only time I really lost money is by taking a stock tip for someone else and not doing my own research before I purchased that stock. So number 1, do your own research, your own due diligence. Number 2, don't buy anything that you do not understand. If you don't understand it, you shouldn't be buying it. And a simple way to do that is saying, look, can I explain this to a child? If you can't explain what this company does to a child, then you shouldn't be in it, because at the end of the day, you're going to be part owner. And I know you can't see my quotation, air quotes, of that company. So why be a part owner of a company that you don't know what they actually do and how they make money for that company?
I think one of the things that we tell people all the time, if you want to learn, because I can't tell you which stock is going to be a good stock or which stock is going to be a bad stock, because if I did, I'll be better than Warren Buffett. So stocks can go either way, but there's certain things that you could do. One, you could diversify, and ETFs and index funds are a great way. They're just a basket of different stocks or different securities that you can buy just by buying one instrument, which is an index fund or ETF. So that's one way to kind of lower your risk. And then 2, you can actually start out buying what we like to talk about as stock slices or fractional shares. There's a couple of companies that offer it. You have Charles Schwab, you have Fidelity. These are brokerage houses that offer fractional shares, and they have high quality companies that you can play around with to try to learn without what. So a stock slice or a stock fractional share, you can buy from anywhere from $1 to $5 to buy a company. And that's a good way to start building a little portfolio to help you understand what's going on without spending that much money.
So you said that you invest in ETFs, index funds, and individual stocks, among other things. What percentage would you say of your portfolio, individual portfolio, goes towards individual stocks? That's just out of curiosity.
I'm less than 10%.
I say I'm around 10% go to individual stock. I don't like trying to manage my portfolio on a daily basis. We have small kids. We don't have the time to follow the market up and down and check multiple stocks. So I have about 10% of my portfolio in stocks that I know what they're doing. Like, it's easier for me to keep up with. And then the rest is more ETF and index funds. I have a very stable, moderate risk portfolio that I wanted to grow. And I'm not looking at short term. I'm looking on a long-term basis.
Love that. And so you guys are both mothers. How many kids do you have each?
I have 3.
I have 2.
Nadia
How
didn't
are
want
you
to follow me
teaching
on
it?
the 3rd one.
I was not having a third one. No way.
I feel like the world, or at least the US, is actually made for like families with like 2 kids, right?
Yeah, you get man-on-man
Everything-
coverage. You can get on roller coasters. You take 2 seats in the roller coaster. You're good.
Exactly.
Third child
Before
get
at every
left out.
restaurant.
I have 3 like you, Nicole, but I realized that after having my twins, when we got to 3, I was like, oh, so I guess they really want you to just stop.
You
at
gotta
2.
have a 4th one.
They make
You gotta have
everything
a
else
4th one.
complicated.
Yep.
They do. They give you 4 chairs at a table when you go to a restaurant. They try to make it convenient for families of 4. There's more of us out here, families of 5 plus.
I know, right? So how are you teaching your kids about money?
The way I teach my children about money is more about value, and I teach them how to save also. So I think when I had my baby shower for each of them, they had a piggy bank at that baby shower. And then from there on, as soon as they were able to do it, I would leave some change here and there. I would make sure they wouldn't swallow the change. They pick up the change, they would put it into the piggy bank, and they got used to doing that. So, and then they like to see their savings grow, and then I bring them to a bank. So they each have bank accounts very early on, right? And then I open up brokerage accounts for them also. So they like seeing their stuff grow. But they also understand if they get to buy something, it has to be based on value, not necessarily price, because if you have the money to buy it, you can buy it, but is it worth your money? So that's the way I'm teaching them. And my 5-year-old, he walked into a store, he wanted to buy something. He goes, there's nothing but junk in here. I don't want to spend my money here. I'm like, okay, a 5-year-old has that concept. And the 9-year-old was like, I'll give an example. We were in Herald Square, like near Times Square in New York City. And they had this big bouncy house thing. Now, no offense to the parents who did it, but it was like $40 per kid to get in a bouncy house. And they were like, oh, we really want to do it. I said, well, ask the person how much it is. And they were like, $40. My daughter goes, $40? You know what I could get for $40 per person? That's $80. I could go to the Harry Potter store, get me a wand, get me all this other stuff. I could go in this park, this roller coaster ride. Like we went to a roller coaster amusement park in the Midwest, and it was like 20 something dollars. She's like, I can go to this amusement park and has a water park connected to it. And it was only $20 per person. And I still have money left over. Why would I pay $40 just to be in a bouncy house in the middle of the street? And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. This 9-year-old gets it.
Love that.
I do the same thing with my kids. I teach them value over price. But we're also, with my 10-year-old, she's doing chores where she gets paid for it now. So she gets her own money. And with her own money, and actually the 8-year-old too, with their own money, they're constantly asking me for something. And I say, well, if you want it, you could buy it. And it so quickly changes their mindset. Like, do I want to do this? Or they try to team up and buy it together. So they understand it's different when the money's coming out of your pocket. On top of that, my oldest daughter, she actually knows her net worth. So she actually has a little notebook and she calculates her net worth. And I actually have to give credit to my husband for doing that, because I was like, okay, what are you doing? But they sit down and they calculate the net worth, and she has her own index funds and everything. So I think,
what kind of liabilities does she have?
No liabilities right now, but she owes me some money, but maybe I should make her put that down.
But it's so interesting, right? Because I also do, when my kids, early on, we used to go to the store and they'd be like, oh, can I get this? Can you buy this? Can you buy that? And now it's totally different. Like when they have to spend their own money, all of a sudden they don't want all these things, right?
I think when people think like, oh, you're teaching money to kids so early and it must be boring and you're forcing it on them. No, my kids love it. And Nicole's kids love it too. And it gives them some kind of like excitement when they're doing it. Now, I probably would try the net worth thing and see how my daughter likes it. But it's not something that they're fighting against. It is not something like sit down, you got to learn how to do it. It's something that they see us do, and we're not checking our net worth all the time. But they see how we spend, they see how we gauge what is worth our money, what's worth our time. And then it just translates into them, and then they just pick it up. And it's like, okay, I can translate this into my own life. And this is something they're going to take going forward as they get older. I don't want people to think it's a punishment on kids. Kids like to do it. Yeah. And if you have to learn at the same time as your child, more the better, because then you're working as a family. So don't think it's something you're pushing on a child. They like doing it.
I definitely feel like the sooner you learn value-based spending, the better off you'll be, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to spend your money in a way that is in alignment with what you care about, what you value. But a lot of times, early on in life, we spend money just based on what people think that you should spend your money on. Mm-hmm. You buy the nice car, even though you don't like cars, like, all those things. So the sooner you learn that it's about what you value, the better off I think you'll be.
But once you have all your other main things covered, then you can go spending, like have a roof over your head, make sure you have some food. Just don't go be spending because you wanted it. Make sure everything else is covered. That's then true. Whatever money you have left over, you can spend it the way you want.
I also talk to my kids about credit. The 10-year-old, she's understanding it. That's the one I probably have the most money conversations with. And I said, they're going to give you this thing when you turn 18. You're going to get a lot of offers for credit cards. I said, but you got to understand, they're going to give you a $5,000 limit or so, and you can spend it as fast as you want. But that money has to be paid at the end of the month, or if not, the amount of payment that you're going to end up making altogether is going to be so much bigger than what you borrowed. So she's like, okay, I don't want credit. I don't want debt. I said, eventually you might need to do it, but understand that there's a price to pay for that if you don't do it correctly.
Love it. So I always end the interview with some rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
Tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life.
I'll give you two. One, Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. I did that to force me to take the language exam to get my French citizenship. It's like discipline. And the other one would be The Magic of Thinking Big. If I had read this book earlier in my life, I probably would have done a lot better in the corporate world and become financially independent a lot sooner. There's one line in particular that says, make it easier for people to lift you up. And I think that was something that really stuck with me. Like, hey, you could be working hard, but if you really want the opportunities, make yourself more valuable, attractive, bring more value so that it's easier for people higher up to bring you up and say, look, I'm presenting this person. This is a good person to be here.
I think two books for me would be one, 7 Strategies for Wealth and Happiness by Jim Rohn. I don't know how many people know him, but he was the one that actually influenced Tony Robbins, who's a big self-help. Some people might call him a guru, but Jim Rohn, very practical advice. And just hearing him say it just so plain really had an effect on me. And I think the second book would be Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I'm not sure a lot of people know who he is, but he is an ex-Navy SEAL. He's an ultra marathoner. He just does crazy. He has the record for most pull-ups, and his mindset shift, because at first he was in Air Force, and he got out because he had a technicality. He got out because of his heart, but he was also afraid that he couldn't swim as well. Then he started living a life of mediocrity, as he called it, and he was an exterminator. He gained over 100 pounds, and he was just not living the life that he wanted. But he made a decision to change his mindset, and he just made it that no wasn't an answer, and he learned to control his mind to change his future. And the more I've learned, and the more I'm learning now, self-discipline and conquering your mind, once you do that, no matter where you decide to put that focus in, having self-discipline to say that this is what you're going to accomplish and telling your mind, this is the journey I'm on and I'm going to accomplish this, makes the biggest difference. That self-discipline, like this one book said, is magic.
What's one life lesson you learned the hard way?
That self-discipline is magic.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's more like if you're not disciplined and you're waiting for motivation to keep pushing you forward, you're going to be waiting a long time. Self-discipline is a magic superpower, and it can make more of a difference in your life than, I would say, money.
One lesson I learned that I had to learn the hard way was probably setting goals. No one taught me about setting goals. I didn't have a plan. Not having a plan for a very long time probably hurt me. So the earlier you can make a plan, the better. And then again, having that self-discipline to execute that plan.
What's one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Watch who you marry. Watch who's going to be the other parent of your kids, because that's going to affect your money. That's going to affect your future. That's going to affect your kids' money. So mindful of who you marry or who you get in a relationship with to have children. And I'm glad I got lucky, part of it, but I also did focus on other aspects. I didn't realize how much it would affect money and money decisions. So if I was to tell my previous self, really focus on who you're going to marry. That's your partner.
I would say it's not how much you start with. That's just the beginning. You can always change it. And money is not the end all be all, but it's something that can change in the blink of an eye.
What's the best investment in yourself you've made so far?
I guess this goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I say it's my running sneakers because it's forcing me to get out there and start running. And my weightlifting set that I put in my garage because I have no excuse now not to work out. I don't have to go to the gym. I just walk outside and get it done. So that has been the best investment because I'm improving my health.
I would say one on improving health front, my Garmin watch. It's not an Apple watch, it's a Garmin smart watch. That thing has made me lose a lot of weight this year. And then 2, best investment that anybody can have and get is a library card. That right there is a free investment. And I read probably a book to 2 books a week. That's my goal, to read at least a book a week. And that right there, investing in my knowledge, investing in myself, and just trying to keep growing. That's probably the biggest investment that I wish. I was always smart. And I used to take that smartness to help me be lazy. But now I'm using that ability to learn very quickly and ability to understand concepts to really increase my learning.
Fill in the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
Freedom.
Money to me is more choices. It allows you the choice of neighborhood you're going to stay
She
in.
said 3 words or less.
Choices.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want my legacy to be the impact I have on people. If they hear my name, it brings a smile and I actually help them. That's what I want my legacy to be.
I want my legacy to be impactful to people. I want people to understand there's other options besides being a rapper or an athlete to do this in terms of living a good life and helping people. And I just think I do. I just want to help people at this point.
Well,
And
Nadia
also bring in
Nicole,
good kids in the world too. I want some good mannered kids who bring some light to this world too.
Thank you both, Nadia and Nicole, for coming on the show. Please tell the dreamers where they can find you.
So you can find us on YouTube. You just type in Wealth Twins on YouTube. We're making videos, at least 1 video a week there, where we talk about investing and all things personal finance. You can also find us on wealthtwins.com, where we have free information, also courses on how to invest just like we do, from stock slices all the way up to dividend investing, and also personal finance courses. You can find that all on wealthtwins.com.
All right. Thank you guys so much.
Now, thank you for having us, Anne-Lyse.
Yes, thank you.